benefit from the mining, and it rewards only the most successful miners. It rewards only the most economic miners. All the members of the network, we don't evaluate any claim for the transactions. We only evaluate the claim that has done the work. We have Bitcoin mining, which is an extremely sophisticated industry. In order to produce new Bitcoins, we have about 6.25 Bitcoins produced every 10 minutes. And in order to produce these, people expend a lot of resources in order to be able to make them. Roughly, the cost of making a Bitcoin fluctuates around the market price of Bitcoin, but both vary, but it's roughly around it. With gold, the same is true as well. It's costly and expensive to find new gold. You have to dig and you have to process it, and it's very...
Okay, so why bother mining it, and why not just cap Bitcoin where it is now? Why bother producing more? Why is that built into the system? Why 21 million and not just where we are now?
Well, 21 million is as good as any number. It could have been 500 trillion, it could have been 5, it could have been anything. Any number is good enough as long as it's divisible. And that's kind of the key insight from the Austrians that made me specifically very interested in Bitcoin. The Austrians were the only one who said, yeah, the quantity of money doesn't matter. You could run any economy on any size of the money. And then as the economy grows, the value of the money increases. And that's a great thing. That's the golden period. That's the golden age of the West.
So it's sort of an illusion in some sense, the cap, because, well, there's 21 million Bitcoin, let's say, but they could be worth anywhere from like $2 to $1 million each. And because it's fractionable, right? So there is no, in that sense, there's no limit to how much money there is, even though there's a limit to how many tokens there are.
Exactly. There's no limit to the value that the network can carry, but there's a limit to the tokens that represent that value. So you don't corrupt the tokens of the system in order to make more tokens, in order to enrich the insiders. You just keep packing more value into it.
Into the tokens. Okay, so why was it allowed to be mined at all then?
So that the distribution of the coins would be a fair distribution, so that anybody could enter into the network and secure coins. Because if you just made the first 21 million, who owns them in the first day? Who's going to be owning the 21 million? How are you going to distribute them? This is not an easy question, and I think most people wouldn't have thought something like Bitcoin to be possible had it not because of this issue. How are you going to start off an upstart currency and give everybody in the world a new balance?
So it was to get it going.
Exactly. It's it's kind of like just for the first 130 years of Bitcoin's history, we're going to need to have mining, but then Bitcoin operates without any more mining.
Right. So you need some gold for gold to work, and so you need to have a mechanism for mining the gold, and so this is some mechanism for producing Bitcoin, so that there are some Bitcoins so it can work. And they're distributed across the people who have done the mining. And so you already have a bit of an economy there because all those people are vested in it.
And it's completely open and perfectly competitive. Anybody in the world can mine. Anybody can bring their computer onto the network and mine and, benefit from the mining. And it rewards only the most successful miners. It rewards only the most economic miners because it has this thing called the difficulty adjustment, which is my favorite part of Bitcoin. It's really the magic glue that holds Bitcoin together, and I discuss it in the Bitcoin standard and in the fiat standard. What happens is that if more miners try and mine copper or gold or silver, you end up with a lot more copper or gold or silver. But with Bitcoin, the more miners that get into the network, you still get the same number of Bitcoin as was predetermined earlier. But the difference is that you don't get, but it just gets harder for the individual miners to get into the network. So it's more like a sports competition wherein there's one trophy, and then the more competitors get in, the trophy just gets harder to win. It doesn't get, you don't get more trophies handed out.
So how in the world did Satoshi figure this out? How did he? I don't understand how he could conceptualize this. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It's an incredible work of genius when you think about just the amount of expertise that he had to have in different fields of knowledge to bring this monster together is absolutely astounding.
Yeah, well, just the conceptualization to begin with, let alone the implementation, the engineering implementation.
To be fair, I mean, it wasn't like he invented this problem. It's a problem that had been around for many decades. People had been trying to build a digital form of money for decades. Since the 1970s and 80s and 90s, there've been attempts to do something like this, and the different attempts to produce something like this always came up against a technical problem called the Byzantine generals problem. And then Satoshi figured out a solution to it through the proof of work system, which is absolutely astounding.
So tell me about that. That sounds, if we can do that without deviating too much. So what is that problem and how did he solve it?
Well, the problem is essentially about how to get all the different nodes on the network to agree on the same version of what's going to happen together. How do they all agree without having a central command authority? That's really the issue.
And why was that the Byzantine generals problem?
Ashamed to say it, but I'm not very much up on my history. I'm not sure where the history of the term comes from.
Okay. Well, I won't torture you with that then. But he solved the problem of consensus verification without a central authority.
Exactly. And the way to do it was to have this expensive ritual called proof of work being performed before any of the members of the network proposes a block of transactions to be added onto the record of transactions. So Bitcoin is, it's a record of transactions that exists over tens of thousands of computers. And the issue is how do you make sure that people don't put in fake transactions in this record? Well, the way he did it was that anybody anywhere in the world could come in and propose new transactions. But in order to have your transactions added, you must first solve this problem, this mathematical problem, the proof of work mathematical problem. And that's actually expensive to solve. It takes your computer running for many, many hours to be able to try and figure out a solution to those things, and for it to get lucky once every 10 minutes. So you have to spend serious money in order to be able to commit to make the claim of the new transactions. And so once it's like if you just allow everybody to present their record of transactions, then there's no mechanism of coordinating between everybody. Whose record do we pick from all those thousands of people? But if you put currently, the reward is about 7 Bitcoin, so that's about $350,000. The Bitcoin network is giving out $350,000 every 10 minutes. You can have them as long as you provide the proof of work solution, which roughly costs you around $350,000, more or less. So how do we make sure that we can all agree on this? All the members of the network. We don't evaluate any claim for the transactions. We only evaluate the claim that has done the work.